A 21-year-old Massachusetts Air National Guardsman was arraigned in court today in connection with the most damaging release of classified U.S. information in years. The leaks raise new questions about who is given access to our nation's most closely guarded secrets. Joining us now for this discussion, Vivian Salama, who covers national security for the Wall Street Journal. Vivian, welcome, and thanks for joining us. The revelation that a 21-year-old, this man named Jack Teixeira, who was a junior service member, had access to and allegedly leaked these classified documents. There were some astonishing details in what we learned, but you cover national security. What was your reaction?
Well, Amina, one of the first things that many of us who cover national security really thought was, okay, here we go again. This is something that has happened throughout the recent history of the United States, and it keeps on happening. And every single time it does happen, there is this sort of self-awakening, aware moment in Washington where they say, oh my God, what are we going to do to stop this? What can we do? Can we limit the access that certain people have to certain classified documents? Do we really crack down harder? Do we broaden our investigations? And every single time there's a commitment to do that. But still, there is this sense that too many people have access to highly classified information. Jack Teixeira, the individual here who was arraigned just Friday, he was a 21-year-old junior Massachusetts Air National Guardsman. He was someone who had SCI clearance, which is pretty much the need to know a clearance level, one of the top clearance levels in government. And so there's so many questions being had about why did this young man have access to this? We don't seem to think that there was any kind of political motive right now. It's very early on in the investigation. It's still unclear. But, with regard to the most famous cases in the most recent years of like the last 50 years, let's say, where you had the Pentagon Papers leak in 1971, where Daniel Ellsberg was the famous Rand Corporation analyst who leaked those and who was believed to have done that because there was so much a debate within the United States about the Vietnam War. You had Edward Snowden leaking sensitive information, intelligence information about surveillance programs on U.S. Citizens' phone data. There was a sense that these were whistleblowers who were trying to kind of had a political motive or something that they were trying to do to help the U.S. population. There does not seem to be that in the early days of this. Investigators so far and everything that we know seems to show that maybe he was showing off and it just kind of got out of hand. And so it's really now forcing the U.S. government to look internally and say, why is this happening? Who has classified information? Is it getting too easy to access? And can we do something to clamp down on that?
Franco, as you know, among those documents were details about Ukraine's capability and potential vulnerabilities in their war with Russia, about details of U.S. spying on allied nations overseas. We also know these documents were out there for weeks, and it doesn't seem like the federal government knew about them until it was apparent in the news media. How is the Biden administration handling all of that?
I mean, I think that's why you saw the Biden administration, you saw the president in Ireland try to avoid this for so many days. They're really trying to scramble to kind of clamp down, to downplay the significance of these documents. But as you point out, they obviously reveal some very concerning details. Spying on allies is always uncomfortable. That's why you have South Korea so angry right now and them trying to kind of calm those fears. I also found it very interesting how some of the details kind of showed kind of the backroom deals that they try to make, particularly trying to boost support for Ukraine and how hard it has been for the Biden administration, such as trying to get South Korea to provide ammunition from a third party or Israel to provide arms when they have a very sensitive and complicated relationship with Russia over Syria. It really, it was really embarrassing and also concerning for a lot of people and a lot of security folks.
Are any White House officials worried that this makes it harder to continue to keep up support for Ukraine?
Now, they are saying no. They are saying this is all under check, that they are having the conversation they're doing. It is not a new thing that the United States is spying on others. It happens all the time, perhaps unfortunately, but it is certainly extremely embarrassing, and it's not what they want to be revealed.
What about lawmakers' approach? Is there a role for Congress?
Yeah,
Is there an appetite to pick it
Well,
up?
I think you're going to hear from Congress on this, and I have written about this in the past. Members of Congress go through a very rigorous process to see classified information, and they see it in the secure facilities, and they can't take any with them. And this is leaving them flabbergasted and going even to the Trump and Biden possession of classified documents outside of where they're supposed to be. And why does this keep happening? And I think you're going to hear them asking a lot of questions about this, and to the point of, we need to have fewer people in charge or with access to this. I do think you're going to see that.
We do hear this again and again, Liam. We've had cases in the past. Have you talked to any of your sources who feel like they want to move on this? Are any of them worried, too, about damaging relationships with allies overseas?
So Congress has been out. So there is an element, and a lot of these members have been on CODELs themselves overseas, especially the members who are on foreign service committees, et cetera. Senators will get an classified briefing this coming week when they return about this. And I think after that is when you are going to start to hear some sort of reaction of what Congress can and what Congress should do. But Carl is absolutely right. You hear Marco Rubio, the top Republican on the Intelligence Committee, and Mark Warner wringing their hands every time there's some sort of leak like this, saying, we have to keep our documents in this classified room. How are all these people able to not only have access to it, but also publicize it as well? And so it's just another thing on Congress's plate, and we'll see what House Republicans do with this. They already have a long list of investigations. We'll see if they open one.
Well,
here.
Kevin McCarthy the Speaker is already saying President Biden is loose with classified documents. So.
Vivian, I want to ask Vivian, too. We should note that she's joining us from Oslo. She's been reporting across Europe. So I want to get your take on this issue of how all these revelations are going down with our allies overseas.
Amina, so I've been overseas pretty much since this story first broke for the last 2 weeks, although I am DC based. And I thought that it was going to blow over with allies a little bit, just because, when you say, oh, the U.S. Has documents that, may reveal that there are certain spy programs or that they are, they have taken some controversial positions. Certainly U.S. allies in Europe who are currently embroiled in trying to keep the alliance together, the NATO alliance together to support Ukraine. They don't want to show that anything is rattling that. So on the one hand, they say everything is fine. We trust the U.S. and ultimately nothing will rattle the alliance. But privately, I've been getting so many questions from these governments that I have been meeting saying, why can't the U.S. kind of keep it together? Why is this so hard for them, for the greatest superpower in the world, to be able to protect its documents? And it's something that is concerning. That Norway is my last stop on this trip. There's one document in that trove about Norway, Norway's Arctic defenses. And even them, for this small country that has very good ties with the United States, they're very uncomfortable by the fact that this could go public. And so it's definitely something that European allies and allies around the world are taking notice of and saying, this is the greatest superpower in the world, and they cannot protect their documents. What does that mean for the rest of us?
Vivian, in the minute or so we have left, I do want to ask you about your Wall Street Journal colleague, Evan Gershkovich. He's been reporting in Russia. He was arrested and charged with espionage recently, and he's now been deemed wrongfully detained by the U.S. government that's working to free him. I just wanted to give you a moment here to share what you can about his case and anything else about Evan.
Thank you so much for asking about it. Evan is one of the great reporters of the Wall Street Journal. I, in my many trips to Ukraine last year, teamed up with him a lot from the other side of the border. Evan would be my partner from Moscow, a fellow New York, New Jersey native, and just a really good guy, very young, doing his job, working hard. And The Russian government has falsely accused him of espionage. He has been in solitary confinement in a Russian prison for over 2 weeks now, and we are working very hard to lobby governments to press our lawmakers to do what we can to get him out. And anyone who's watching, we hope that you can do the same and help us out.
Thank you for that. Of course, keeping him and his family in our thoughts. And that is all the time we have for tonight. Thank you to all of our panelists for joining us and for sharing their reporting. And thanks to all of you for watching at home. And